All right, finally feeling better and ready to jump back into the swing of things. This phase of Marvel's Civil War event bookends with Frontline Issues, giving us a lot of perspective. Why these heroes are doing what they're doing, why they're taking the sides that they are, and in some cases, taking on such great risks. How they're seen by the public, and how they're seen by each other. As we crack the spine of Frontline Issue 3, we see a blindfolded Sally Floyd being taken to a secret location by what seems to be a sect of underground resistance that is opposing the new law. Sally's been extremely vocal about her opposition to registration and has sought out anyone willing to speak. She's offering them a chance to keep their identity secret while also giving them a voice. Now, the main point that Typeface would like to make is that just because they are opposed to registration does not mean that they are then somehow unsympathetic to the tragedy that happened in Stanford. Just because he believes in fighting for the First Amendment rights to the freedom of speech, assembly, privacy, and so on, does not mean that he is okay with the death of innocents. Typeface is a Vietnam War veteran who, much like Captain America, will fight for these rights no matter the soil, foreign or domestic, no matter the oppressor. That's who they are. It's the oaths that they took. But by doing that, they are now fugitives, breaking the very laws that are set on the foundations of which they are trying to protect. Man, well, that's deep. We jump over to the Baxter building, where Ben Urich, who works for pro-registration media outlet The Daily Bugle, is interviewing Reed Richards. The question that Ben poses is right to the point, though he words it well. He basically asks, what makes you think that you were so right about this? To which Reed points Ben to his projections of social dangers, much like he had done with Sue. Man, he's really proud of his projections, let me tell you. You think a meteorologist is excited to tell you about what they think's coming? You just wait till you meet Reed Richards. So something about Reed Richards. Prior to the Civil War, he had become kind of stagnant. You see, early in his publication, Reed was everywhere. He was Mr. Fantastic. He was basically Mr. Marvel. He was in team up after team up, protecting everything from Yancey Street to all of New York City to the country as a whole to eventually the whole damn world and far, far beyond. Reed stretched himself to the breaking point, trying to fix and solve every single problem that presented itself. And by the late 1980s, he was exhausted, and so were the readers. Reed and subsequently the Fantastic Four were put on the relative back burner and idled for years. But that one single conversation, that meeting with Tony Stark and Hank Pym, where they brainstormed 100 ideas for a better future, something in that night changed Reed. Through the Civil War, Reed starts working on a lot of very dangerous ideas, and he learns how to keep secrets. The ideas in that meeting eventually lead to a run in the Fantastic Four that I'm most likely going to try and cover eventually. So until then, we'll just keep an eye on Reed Richards. So after her meeting with the underground heroes, Sally doesn't seem convinced that it's the story that she needs. She stumbles onto a square-off between pro-registration Bantam and the anti-registration Thunderclap. They have been duking it out for a while, and Thunderclap is getting cocky. He claps Bantam hard, launching him into a gas tanker. The explosion knocks the onlookers back, but thankfully doesn't seem to have killed any bystanders on the street. However, as fire and EMS rush to Bantam, it is clear that he is not all right. Thunderclap's carelessness is yet another prime example for registration. Whether he meant to or not, whether he likes it or not, this is war, and Thunderclap just took the first shot, causing the first casualty of war. We pick up then with poor Robbie Baldwin, and he's looking really beat up. His lawyer, the famous She-Hulk, is doing her best to navigate the current political climate and the law to help get Robbie out of jail. But he has held firm that he will not plead guilty, that he did nothing wrong, that some asshole named Nitro exploded and killed 60 kids, not him. But the deal that she presents him is honestly the best that he could possibly get. He registers as a costume hero and does 3 years of community service as a hero. So basically, doing what he's already doing. And that's that. He's out living the life he would have anyway, and in 3 years' time, it's like it never happened. But he sees it as an admission of guilt. and he is not going to be the scapegoat for this, and tells her that he will sign the deal when hell freezes over. Heroes for Hire Issue 1 puts together a new team of street-level heroes willing to do whatever it takes to get paid. The original lineup of the Heroes for Hire saw Luke Cage and Iron Fist teaming up with Misty Knight and Colleen Wing, but by the mid-1990s, Heroes for Hire had a rolling roster like other team-up books in the past, such as the Defenders. Now, I bring that up specifically to point out that the Netflix Marvel Defenders series, by all accounts, is and should be the Heroes for Hire, not the Defenders. The Defenders were a group of heroes organized by Doctor Strange, including Hulk, Namor, Clea Strange, Son of Satan, and yeah, Power Man Luke Cage, and yeah, Patsy Walker Hellcat. But that's like the only real connection. The show should have been the Heroes for Hire. Now I'll get off of my high horse and we'll get into this issue. Misty Knight and Colleen Wing have just finished a 6-issue miniseries called Daughters of the Dragon. They make quite a team, honestly, and have a solid reputation for getting the job done. And that's why they are asked to Stark Tower to meet with Tony, Reed, and Peter. The trio has a request for the Daughters of the Dragon, a job. The same deal that they presented the Thunderbolts with. Hunt down unregistered combatants and bring them in. Enforce the law. See, Misty is an ex-cop, so Tony does his best to try and appeal to that nature. And as regular, non-superhumans, Wing and Knight agree with registration on its surface. They agree with holding the mass community responsible for their actions and training them, just not with hunting down their friends. Misty makes it clear that it is her choice not to take out heroes, that they are only going to go after villains. They make an interesting point that in the case of civil rights and liberty issues, civil disobedience, like refusing to give up a bus seat after a hard day's work or not taking off a freaking mask, does not warrant her level of mercenary justice. They will only focus on those causing actual harm to others. And her only stipulations to taking the job are that she gets Stark-level resources to back her up. You know, proper funding for proper hunting. And secondly, when things go bad and the chips are down, that they will still be the men that she trusted, that she's not putting her faith into the wrong hands. Tony agrees, and with that, the new Heroes for Hire are born. The team they put together includes Wing, Knight, Black Cat, Humbug, Shang-Chi, and Tarantula, even calling in Orca and Paladin. This is a heck of a team, and we will talk more about them as time goes on. But bringing them up reminds me, we should go check on Zemo and the Thunderbolts and see what this whole army that Zemo's building is all about. As much as I want the Thunderbolts to succeed, I cannot shake off this deep-seated mistrust that I have for Helmut Zemo. I genuinely want to be wrong about him, but we won't know until we crack the spine. Jumping into Thunderbolts 104, we see the team are firing on all cylinders. They are taking down baddies and recruiting them, training them, and rehabilitating them in record timing. They are being closely monitored by the Joint Chiefs and other military personnel, including the on-again and off-again liaison, Dallas Riordan. They ease the minds of the Joint Chiefs that the team is under control. Their only worry, of course, is Zemo. Like myself, they can't really seem to pinpoint his motives. So we catch up with Zemo as he enters into the lab to assist Reed, Hank, and Radioactive Man. It's pointed out that would it not have been for Zemo, the extent of the progress that they have made couldn't have been possible. But as always, Zemo seems to throw out some sort of snide comment to Hank about the past between the Thunderbolts and the Avengers, sending Yellowjacket off on a rant. Reed calms them down, and Zemo says that he is looking forward to the day that Hank can accept that he has truly changed and honestly just wants to do good. But Pym just says that today is not that day. Even though Mr. Fantastic is looking on the bright side for the potential reward of having Zemo on their side, Pym is haunted by the potential risk. And I also like to note Radioactive Man just quietly observing. Upon returning to the headquarters, Zemo is briefed on the team's current missions, and we're briefed on why he is after such a force. The Grand Master, Jeff Goldblum's character for all you couch comic fans out there. I know some of you just watch the movies. It seems that Zemo has somehow caught himself up with one of the elders of the universe. Not good. Swordsman is training some new recruits. This is Andreas Strucker. To see a Strucker and a Zemo working together kinda raises some red flags. However, Zemo points out that this is what the Thunderbolts have always meant to be. United, coordinated, reformed, and funded, trusted. This is a big step for the Thunderbolts. Doc Ock even poses the question to Zemo. What's the end game? What do we get out of all of this at the end? And Zemo tells him that if it is not rewarding enough just to be free and not jailed for being different, then perhaps the chance to be better at being good than they are and humiliating the heroes is worth Otto's time. And I think that very line of thinking is actually what leads to the superior Spider-Man storyline. But Zemo leaves them to meet with someone to ensure the longevity of his plan. He meets with Captain America, and he tells Cap that he comes in peace with an offer. He holds the keys to their freedom, but the decades of conflict between the two has instilled so much mistrust in Steve's heart that he and his team attack without question. And Zemo takes on all three of them, using his moonstones to take out Falcon and Hercules. Even when they use Red Wing to snatch the stones away from Zemo, he just proves that he no longer needs to be physically linked to the stones in order to control them. And then phase shifts Red Wing, Falcon, and Herc right to New Jersey, allowing a chance for him and Cap to talk one-on-one. Steve still tries to fight Zemo, but he is no match for the moonstones. And Zemo just proves that he's not there to hurt Captain America. He's not there to fight. He's not there to bring him in. He honestly meant what he said. He is there to help. He explains to Cap that it took sacrificing himself and nearly dying to realize that he is not his father. That deep down, he does not have the same desires his father had. He needed to prove that he was better, but not better than Captain America or the Avengers, better than himself, better than the Baron. Back at the Baxter building, Hank and Reed talk about radiation leak levels and if they could be potentially harmful to the residents, being very clinical and cold about the inhabitants of the prison that they are building, the one to house their friends. Radioactive Man eventually has had enough. Being a Chinese national, he has lived in a country with a similar social climate, and he cannot help but point out to the two Avengers in the room just how they're behaving. They don't think that's fair, so he makes his key point. Captain America. He asks them to say out loud that they are planning to arrest and then imprison Captain America, and then they can tell him that he's wrong. And Zemo finally explains why he's playing both sides. He tells Steve that he and his comrades will be caught and that they will be imprisoned in a facility that he is helping build and that he can help them get out of it. The only catch, and Captain knew that there was going to be one, is that at the height of the Civil War, the Earth's heroes are going to have to put aside their differences to help Zemo defend from a very real and very dangerous threat from the Grand Master. And Steve is furious that Zemo would be arrogant enough to challenge the Grand Master, but Zemo says, no. The Grand Master was fool enough to challenge him. Then Zemo reaches through time and space to pull Captain America's footlocker to their location. The very one that in years past Zemo himself destroyed in a childish attempt to humiliate Captain America. Zemo tells him that he had to lose his past to become his future. But Steve didn't. He didn't deserve such treatment. What Zemo does here isn't just giving an old man his mementos back. It was giving a lost soldier his identity back. It reminds Steve of who he is at his core and gives him the strength to see this through. And he also gives him a key to the containment facility. He gives Captain America hope. There's a brief meeting between Songbird and Dallas where they discuss the future of the Thunderbolts post-Civil War when things settle down to their new normal and once Zemo's plan has been completed. They speak as if Zemo will be dead and Melissa will take over. They're very casual about this as if it's part of the plan. They also mention Stark's 50-state initiative, one of those 100 ideas for a better future that he, Reed, and Hank came up with. It's top secret like Project 42, and we will get into both of those soon enough. Melissa and Zemo meet back at the Folding Castle, where they confirm that Zemo is actually aware of her plans to lead the Thunderbolts after his, quote, death. That in his sacrifice, somehow Zemo plans on becoming eternal? I don't know. We're just going to have to see how that goes. For those of you reading along at home, you can slip Cable Deadpool issue 30 in right here. but I'm actually going to save it. We're going to group it up with 31 and 32 in the next run. For now, let's head over to the hospital and check in on Johnny Storm. Between issues 537 and 538, Johnny Storm was attacked outside of a nightclub in Civil War issue 1. He is still in a comatose state. When we crack the spine of this book, we see a doctor explaining to the Fantastic family Johnny's condition. He tries to tell them how best to manage it, not just for themselves, but for Johnny's sake as well. Positive communication and calm energy around him is best. But just like any normal family, the moment the doctor leaves the room, the fighting begins. Sue and Reed are not seeing eye to eye on registration as of late. She says that he has better things to do than sit around with Johnny. And he tries explaining his side, that they are not better things, they are just urgent things, in preventing more people from ending up like the Human Torch. But that's not how she sees it. In her mind, it is his fault. If he and Tony Stark hadn't jumped in to be the poster boys for registration, then maybe their friends wouldn't need rounding up for standing up for the principles that they have always believed in. And about then, Ben chimes in, asking if they remember that whole chill vibes thing that the doc was talking about. But even still, Reed asks him if he is going to help arrest unregistered combatants. But Ben is like, look man, this isn't the time or place. Both of you need to go calm down. And when they leave, they take different routes. Things between them are seriously strained. But Ben Grimm does his best to kill time and keep his friend entertained. It's the most surreal and optimistic thing in this event so far, just watching him go through a range of attempts and emotions in just a few panels to take our minds off of the larger problems at hand. He talks about how that hammer in Oklahoma has just been left there. People line up to try and take it, but no one can move it. So the government just kind of gave up guarding it since it's perfectly safe where it is. After some time, Sue returns, and she is upset with the way that things are rolling out, stating that sometimes in a democracy, disagreeing can be the most patriotic thing that you can do. Take the founding of the nation as Exhibit A, and she just wishes that there's more time to think before acting. And on Ben's way out of the hospital, he notices a civil dispute where a gang of citizens are standing up to the New York City Police Department who are trying to apprehend an unregistered combatant. It's on Yancey Street. That's his block. And who is it that's causing the ruckus? It's Ms. Marvel and Silverclaw. Silverclaw brings up a good point. Why should she register with the government? It's a U.S. law, and she is not a U.S. citizen. She's basically been here on a hero's work visa for the Avengers and never left. She's most likely even just trying to flee the country now and was stopped by Carol. When Ms. Marvel and Silverclaw notice Ben, they expect him to join in and help Carol wrangle Silverclaw. But to their surprise, he doesn't. He walks away and instead offers his help to solve the dispute between the Yancey Street gang and the police. To put it plainly, the gang, and well, most of the street, disagrees with the law. I see two main points at play. One, Ben is doing everything in his power to remain a neutral party in this. Ben Grimm is ex-military. He's the kind of guy that sees the wrong in what's going on, but follows the law. He won't fight his own government, but he is also no longer a soldier and is not going to blindly fight for them either. And like Susan said, he just wants more time to think about what he may have to do. The other point is that the gang knows that getting in the middle of this, they might get arrested. They know they might get hurt, but this is their choice as non-powered people to take a stand. This is their chance to save the heroes for once, because this isn't Galactus that they're fighting. It's legislation made by the people for the people and changeable by the people. They are not standing down no matter what Grimm says. So he goes off to think about things. The last few bits of information that this book gives us is that the Puppet Master and the Thinker are up to something to hit the super community while they're low. We knew that villains would start making moves eventually though, right? Also, it appears that the man in the hat and the coat that we saw heading to Oklahoma has made it to his destination, and after some aggressive line cutting, has made contact with the hammer. The initials on his bag that we saw before being frosted away were DB, Donald Blake if I were to take a guess, the human counterpart to Thor Odinson. It's a long and complicated story, but the hammer is in good hands. Here we are, the Ceasefire. Right in the middle of the Civil War, when Iron Man, Reed Richards, and Hank Pym are off building the most cutting-edge, advanced Supermax prisons and enlisting villains to hunt them down, You've got Captain America, Falcon, Daredevil, Luke Cage, all hiding underground, fighting for their lives. Do you think that it might be possible, to get everyone together peacefully without any conflict or drama? I hope so. Because you've been invited to the wedding of the century. Black Panther and Storm of X-Men fame are tying the knot, and everyone who's anyone will be there. So let's crack the spine. Man, I hope that's the only spine cracking going on. It's a win. Like I said, everyone is here. Luke Cage, who's expressing his shock that Spider-Man took the side he did after all the squawk that he made over secret identities. We've got the Fantastic Four, Ben still trying to be the neutral party and keep things smooth. X-Men's Kitty Pryde, Cyclops, Wolverine, Colossus hiding back there. Namor teasing Black Bolt, who's not allowed to speak. Doctor Strange, Blade, Doc Voodoo in the back. Used to be Brother Voodoo, but that's problematic. We've got Goliath, Danny back in his Iron Fist persona, Shang-Chi, Monica Rambeau, Triathlon. Like I said, everyone is here. And if you've seen Falcon and Winter Soldier on Disney Plus, then you know exactly who Sam Wilson is helping to his seat. That is Isaiah Bradley. And as Cage puts it, he's kind of the first version of him. Of course, the only person missing here is Blue Marvel, Adam Brashear, who was created in 2008. So even though his story origins say that he dates back all the way to the 1960s, sadly enough, he wasn't created until after the Civil War event ran, so no Blue Marvel. Inside the palace, T'Challa explains to Storm what it means to become the sole partner of the Black Panther. It's not just becoming Queen of Wakanda. They will undergo a ceremony where they will enter into a trance and be judged by the Panther God. When there's a knock at the door, and in walks Professor Charles Xavier. Charles has been out of the game for a while in the Marvel Universe up to this point. Seeing him at all, let alone walking, is a surprise. And he tells her that he wouldn't miss this day for anything. Not only does he have nearly a fatherly pride in seeing her marry the man that she loves, but he reminds her that this union will elevate her to becoming the most high-profile mutant. As Queen of Wakanda, she will be on the world stage, and therefore the ambassador of mutant kind. She's been a princess of her tribe, revered as a goddess by many, been an X-Men and even an Avenger. But this is the role that she was born to play, because she's not playing anything. It's who she is. Elsewhere, Tony Stark is being brought before King T'Challa for a meeting before the wedding. To his surprise, Steve Rogers is there in full hero garb. It seems that he tricked both of them into meeting him to try and ask them to put aside their differences for this one day on neutral ground in order to honor a friend. This is the first time Tony and Steve have stood in the same room since before all of this happened. They've never actually had a chance to talk this through or to talk at all. The conversation goes exactly as you'd expect to. They are both sticking to their ideology. Cap tells him that it's the very principles that the nation was founded upon, that he has been fighting for 60 years. And Tony says it's the law and he is breaking it. Steve argues that the law is presuming criminal behavior. Tony's rebuttal is that it's regulation, like gun control or breeder's license. And Cap ultimately says it's not someone's choice to be gifted. And Tony brings up the parents and the survivors of Stamford. The conversation is not going anywhere. Cap can tell that they won't be able to be civil during a civil war. He calmly shakes the king's hand and apologizes. He leaves, and Tony tells T'Challa how he feels. That Wakanda's position in this as neutral is going to make them look weak in the end, and that he needs to stay out of things that he does not belong in. Hold up, is he not an Avenger? Panther tells him that the cancerous rift that is tearing his nation apart and eating its soul has no place in Wakanda. Tony takes that for face value, associating himself with the act so complicitly that he had rather just leave the wedding than hold his tongue. I think this deeply hurts T'Challa, even though he won't say it. He works with Tony Stark, but he respects Steve Rogers. Back outside, Blade, Voodoo, and Strange uncovered the presence of the Watcher. This is the second time he's appeared in this event. Is it because of the ceasefire? because of the union between two of the most prominent members of the super community? Are they on a path, and if so, where is it leading? But it's time. He rolls out of the mouth of the panther and onto the altar, while she descends from the heavens. The priestess puts them into their trance, and they are transported into the spirit world, where they encounter the aspects of the spirit gods. They find the panther god, who recognizes T'Challa, but not Aurora. He presents her to the panther god as his bride. The god gazes into her eyes to judge her soul. Be she worthy and return to the mortal realm, or be she unworthy and her soul consumed? But with a big lick and a happy kitty pose, I'd say she passed the test. Their union is blessed by the panther god, and they return to their realm. The celebrations begin. Ain't no party like a super party. Someone tries to crash it, but the Mystics are onto them, and Luke Cage contemplates moving to Wakanda. In his eyes, he sees a place for his daughter to grow up proud of being black and having powers. No one's going to give her flack in Wakanda. And he thinks that the Falcon and even Photon should come and join them. Jess just kind of laughs him off, saying that he's been on some sort of Black Avengers kick for a while now and to just give it up. Shut up, Jessica. Come on, man. Think about it. The team that they could have. Luke Cage, Blue Marvel, Doc Voodoo, Monica Rambeau, Goliath, Black Panther, Misty Knight. You will not deny me this, Jessica Jones. And Spider-Man is having a grape soda and talking to Man-Ape, M'Baku, who's sitting alone, kind of confused. He had come in order to crash the wedding, but they said that his name was on the list. He never even imagined that he would be welcome, or that there would be a list. But due to the alcohol and a misunderstanding, he gets a little carried away. I mean, it's not really a superhero party until there's a fight, right? The king and queen take a moment after the big day to open some wedding gifts. One from Kitty, one from the Beyond Corporation, which is interesting because I'll be talking about them soon. One present has the Latverian seal on it. Upon opening it, they are greeted with a hologram from Dr. Doom. He has a lot of encouraging things to say to the couple. A nation leader, like himself, understands what their union means to the world. Doom offers one simple piece of advice, followed by a question. He reminds them of the current state of the world compared to what it was in years prior, pre-heroes, how people have changed over the decades, and if heroes can change, why can't villains? Perhaps, in years to come, they can work together instead of against each other. It's an interesting proposition, one that kickstarts a honeymoon world tour event for a few issues in the Black Panther series, but we will pick back up with the king and queen before this event is all over. We head back to Frontline to check in on Ben and Sally since that whole Thunderclap debacle. Sally is convinced that it is all too convenient. A law-abiding pro-registration hero is murdered by an out-of-control unregistered combatant? The placement of the gas tanker was too perfect to cause an explosion that would echo Stanford in the minds of the people. I mean, come on, the presence of the media, how no one else got hurt, it was the perfect storm, and having lived through it, she can't help but feel like it was staged, or at least set up for the perfect failure. But Ben tells her that she's getting too close, and she's getting paranoid, starting to see connections that aren't there. She needs to report the news in front of her, and not how she wants the world to be. But she tells him he's wrong, and if you follow the thread back far enough, someone, somewhere, has something to gain from all of this. From registration specifically, and she intends to find out the truth. Ben is honestly a little worried, because he knows Sally. She is a good reporter. She has a good stomach for this sort of thing. And most good reporters just have a way of ending up right where they need to be. There's a note on his car window telling him that he should listen to Sally, that she's closer to the truth than Ben thinks. But who left it? And who's following him? We join Sally, who's sitting in on another underground superhero meetup. Instead of interviewing them all like she did last time, it seems that she's just taking notes. There's a lot more heroes here than last time as well. It looks like they are formulating some kind of a plan that they're trying to make contact with Captain America's secret Avengers. A hero named Solo noticed a sudden change in the air pressure, looks out the window and sees Iron Man, Miss Marvel, Wonder Man, and a whole lot of cape killers. They have seconds to respond. Instantly, a few of them turn on Sally, thinking that somehow that she was followed, or even worse, that maybe she turned them in. But Battlestar steps in and sees to her safety. Battlestar's another one of those that doesn't get talked about enough, honestly. He was the Bucky Barnes to John Walker's Captain America, or better known as U.S. Agent. He risks it all to save and protect Sally, a citizen, an innocent, and their best bet to getting their voices heard. The place is being stormed, and Gladiatrix is pinned by a bunch of rubble, but Sally is pulled out of a back exit just in time. Battlestar, Typeface, and Solo were all taken prisoner. And moments later, Sally's on the phone trying her best to tell Ben what has happened to her, that they might have been following the press in order to ID their sources, and that he should be careful. But her message is actually cut off, and Ben, just as Sally did, is also following his gut for a good story, placing him right into harm's way. At the end of a dark alley, he sees a small package, almost as if it was waiting for him. And inside is a pumpkin bomb. The Green Goblin has tracked Mr. Urich down to issue a retraction. Apparently, one of Ben's past articles about Norman Osborn must have hit the Goblin where it hurts. And as with other Frontline issues, we get to see what's becoming of poor Robbie Baldwin. It looks like he's gotten himself into some prison boxing. He's doing well too, until a spectator cheats and cuts his leg. Robbie stumbles to the ground and his opponent breaks his leg. The pain stirs something in Robbie, and for a brief second, his power that they told him was gone flares up and lays out the entire room. Shortly after, his mother comes to see him. She's upset and confused. She is not a super. She's just a normal lady whose son is currently the fall guy for a mass tragedy. She is conflicted between wanting what is best for her son, what's best for the families of the Stanford victims, and for herself. I'm sure it's hard for her. I know that most heroes don't ask for their powers, and when they put on a costume and make the choice to do something heroic, to stand up for someone who can't stand up for themselves, to save the innocent, that they are making that choice and assuming that risk. But their families are not. And she just wants to see him show some kind of remorse. That's all that anyone wants. But Robbie isn't capable of being remorseful for something that he didn't do. This disappoints her, and she tells him that she won't be back again. This is the last time that she's going to come to see him if he is unwilling to do anything to change his situation or help those that have been hurt by his actions. Choosing sides. This is an odd little tie-in issue that basically feels like a montage in a movie. It's several short stories with different writers and artists telling us what side certain characters are taking. Some characters that are otherwise not super important to the Civil War, like Howard the Duck, or adds backgrounds to upcoming tie-ins. For me, there are 4 key points in this issue. 1. Venom joins the Thunderbolts. 2. Scott Lang recently stole the Ant-Man suit from S.H.I.E.L.D. and has yet to be caught or reveal himself as the new Ant-Man. So that gives us some context as to where and when he falls into the Pym particle family tree. 3rd, Danny Rand has been acting as the Daredevil in Matt Murdock's absence and will continue to do so for as long as it takes. Finally, that the U.S. agent was sent to the Canadian border to help the Canadian government with hordes of superhero refugees fleeing the U.S. One of them being Purple Man. Purple Man? Like Kilgrave Purple Man? Yeah, I know. I keep emphasizing this point, but I will say it again. Absolutely everyone is mentioned during the Civil War. Wow. So we're like 30 issues into this event. Tony Stark has been in nearly every single one, and yet this is the first Iron Man issue with the Civil War banner. And to be totally honest, it's kind of irrelevant. Let's crack the spine and I'll show you what I mean. So for the first 8 pages, Tony is recording voiceover for pro-registration propaganda. After that, we get the slimmest mention of a villain, and then back to 5 more pages of Tony sitting on the couch and laying in the bed, doubting himself. I'm being very, very hard on Tony Stark during this event. I really am. But the truth is, he is one of my favorites. In Tony Stark, I see every hard choice I have ever made. Every time I have sacrificed a pawn for the greater good, every time I was too preoccupied with something to spend time with the person at my side, just opposed. In Steve Rogers, I see the moral compass I wish I lived by. The embodiment of doing the right thing without trading lives, and someone who is there for their friends till the absolute end. You know what? I think it's time for another top 5. Seagon's top 5 personal favorite Avengers. Number 5, Iron Man. He's an OG, one of the original Silver Age heroes created by Stan Lee. And with all respect, we wouldn't have the MCU without him. Swooping in at number 4 is Falcon. Sam Wilson is one of those characters I think of as an Avenger first. A lot of other characters come from their own titles or supergroups like the X-Men, but in my mind, Falcon is one of the best Avengers. He is a team player, and he has your back. If I'm building a team, he's on it every time. Number 3 is Hellcat. Patsy Walker is so much more than just friends with Jessica Jones. But until you start to talk about the more occulty members of the Marvel community, until we start to talk about the real Defenders, until we bring up people like Damian Hellstrom or mention other Titans than just Thanos like Moonstone, until then, yeah, maybe Patsy Walker's just a former child star. Number 2, Spider-Man. If any of you have ever seen my live streams, you'd know that I could talk about Spider-Man for actual hours on end and still barely scratch the surface of what Spider-Man means to me, so I will spare you. Number 1 is, of course, Captain America. If you don't think I've said enough already to back up why I feel this way, then keep listening, because we are only halfway through the Civil War. Now, the last thing that happens in this issue is that Happy Hogan is attacked by Spymaster on his way to his anniversary date with Pepper. Oh yeah, if you didn't know, in the comics, Pepper Potts marries Happy, not Tony. It's a beautiful change that the MCU made that I think really gave a massive chunk of humanity and moral backbone that Tony needed to be the pinnacle hero that we needed for him in the MCU. But anyway, Happy is taken as bait for what? We will find out soon. Frontline Issue 5 will cap off this video. Although this issue still follows Ben and Sally, things are spiraling out on both sides. Not just is it getting harder to protect their sources, but themselves as well. Let's crack it and dive on in. We pick up with a frantic Ben Urich, who's doing his best to explain to his editors, JJ and Robbie, that Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, just cornered and threatened him. But Jonah and Robbie, they don't really seem to believe him. As far as they and the rest of the general public know, Osborn is behind bars in prison where he will stay. They are blissfully unaware that the lengths that S.H.I.E.L.D. will go to for what they think is best. And we cut to Sally, who's walking through Chinatown. She's thinking about how large-scale war is, compared to how small the idea that spawns it often can be. How the powers that be can easily distract millions of people by making them look in the wrong direction. She thinks about how the average person is more concerned with making dinner and their daily appointments than the war that's on TV. You see, television has a way of making things feel miles away and even dramatized. Like most things, it won't really hit the masses until it affects their day-to-day. A figure sneaks up behind Sally and holds what could be a gun to her back and tells her to keep walking. Now, this person is very insistent on a few key points. The first is that Captain America no longer exists. That there is no secret underground of heroes. That Cap and the rest really have changed their identities and are living normal lives. The other is that there is no conspiracy behind the act. That it really is what it is on the surface, and not a cover for another motive. But the act is flawed, and any good lawyer should be able to poke holes in it all day. He's basically telling her to stop digging into motives for the act and start researching the act itself, and shed light on the flaws. With that, he disappears, leaving only his weapon behind. Now, I just want to say here, I think this is strange. I think that whoever this is wants the act repealed or stopped in some way, but I am going to disagree with them. I 100% think that there is a deeper motive. And I think that Sally believes that too. And Ben Urich is still arguing with Jonah about the legitimacy of what he saw when an aide walks in telling Jonah that Iron Man himself just confirmed that Osborn is still in jail where they left him, and an eyewitness supposedly confirmed that. Now, JJ won't listen to Urich no matter what he says, and Ben says it all. And once he's done expressing himself, Jonah fires him for like the billionth time. And while handing in her article to her editor, Sally is confronted by Eric Marshall, the agent that has been strong-arming Speedball into signing the act. He's under the assumption that she has met with Captain America. He's under the impression that that's who the Banana Man was and that Sally knows how to contact him, which is something that Banana Man warned her about, even though she doesn't know anything. Others think that she does, and that makes her dangerous and in danger. She refuses to give up her sources, which is protected by the Constitution. Even though she doesn't know what they want anyway, they still place her and her editor under arrest. And we pick up with Robbie Baldwin once again. We see that he is being transferred. His lawyer, She-Hulk, is on the transport trying her best to prepare him mentally for what he is about to go through. As Speedball has been locked up since all of this has started, he really hasn't seen the public response to it all. So for him, it's kind of like falling asleep in the summer of 1999 and then waking up in January of 2002. 9/11 has happened and it's on every single news channel 24 hours a day, and the nation is changed forever. And that's what it's been like for the US-based people of the Marvel Universe. In a few short weeks, their entire social and political landscapes have been dramatically changed. She-Hulk tells Robbie that his refusal to sign a deal that the courts see as fair and reasonable means that his appeal process is going to take more time. Also, that a collaborative effort between the government, S.H.I.E.L.D., and the quote, power players has led to a specific facility being made in order to house Registration Act violators. But Robbie is still in too much shock at how the people see him now to really understand her. Try as she might to explain how things are only going to get worse for him, he really doesn't understand it until he sees it. The entrance to the negative zone. Surrounded by S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, Robbie falls in line behind Typeface and Coldblood. He's still making sarcastic remarks and jokes and not taking things seriously as he should. But once he passes through the barrier into the negative zone and sees it with his own two eyes, what Project 42 has been all along. This Supermax prison in the negative zone, which is an alternate dimension. Reed, Hank, Tony, they haven't just been planning to stop their old pals that don't want to play by the new rules. They have found a large-scale way to ship them off to an alternate plane of existence. The term concentration camp couldn't be applied more accurately. This is what you needed Zemo for. God damn it, Tony Stark, you have conspired with German supervillains to build a concentration camp. I genuinely couldn't be more disappointed. I know this isn't DC, but when you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. In this phase, shots were fired. The polarities continue to divide the super community. Next phase, war. Both sides head off in an all-out super versus super battle that will leave a lasting scar on the Marvel landscape.